Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to episode 71 of Fracking Nightmare. It's Monday, the 29th of October, 2015, and we've had a little bit of entertainment here this evening as somebody was trying to get us to open the door of the studios here at the offices of UK Column. This was a bailiff who was looking for somebody called Ian R. Crane, apparently. And he was looking to serve some papers, apparently. Well, let's just take a look at what this actually relates to, because this is Rathlin Energy trying to get the bailiffs to serve court papers on their behalf. And basically, it all relates to this. And this is Crawberry Castle. And this is the castle that was built at the entrance of the Crawberry Hill well site in East Yorkshire about 18 months ago, almost about 17 months ago actually. It was in late May of last year. And the reason that this castle was built at the entrance was due to Humberside police making it abundantly clear that they were not going to facilitate any kind of peaceful protest. In fact, their idea of peaceful protest was basically getting the protection community to stand at the side of the road and wave and shout, and that was about it. Now, despite the fact that the Crown Prosecution Service guidelines make it abundantly clear that peaceful protest may actually involve nuisance and disruption, but that doesn't make it unlawful, this was irrelevant to Humberside police, and clearly they had been instructed from on high that after the events of Balcombe and Barton Moss, that they were simply to ride roughshod over any attempt at peaceful protest. So consequently, that demanded a degree of creativity. And so with some legal counsel, a decision was taken to build a castle in the entrance there. Now, we didn't expect the castle to be there for too long, but Rathlin Energy didn't seem to be in too much of a hurry to remove it. But they did serve papers, I think it was around about the end of August. Well, the papers led to a court case in London, and our application was to have the case heard in Hull. That was all we were seeking at the time, that this was a situation of such import that it should be heard within the immediate environment of the well site rather than in London. Well, the judge, unfortunately, wasn't having any of it and awarded the eviction order to Rathlin. The judge did actually say that he wasn't looking to impede or impinge upon the right to peaceful protest, that the protection community should simply move to the verge. Well, the protection community decided it wasn't actually going to remove the castle, so that led to the bailiffs arriving to conduct the eviction. Now, that eviction was on August of last year of 2014. So Rathlin had full access to this site since that time. Now, just to put it in perspective, let's have a look at Rathlin here. This is the current state of play. All the light brown licenses are the ones currently under review in the 14th round, but all the other colours are licenses that have already been awarded. Now, the Rathlin licence, this one in light green here, this is the largest single area licence in the country. And this is where Rathlin Energy have to date drilled two wells, one at Crawberry Hill, which is the well site where you saw the castle, and the other one at West Newton. So Rathlin Energy have had plenty of time to establish their intent, but whilst they were at West Newton, they were guilty of some 19 breaches of their environmental permit. And a number of those environmental breaches are still being reviewed, apparently. But it doesn't get any better, because Rathlin Energy were then looking to drill another well and to establish another well site at a location to be known as West Newton B. Well, during the seismic testing, they damaged a number of properties, but the most significant damage was the damage to this fishing lake just on the outskirts of the village of Sproatley. And I have actually visited this location, and I've seen the damage that was caused. There was damage to the house, damage to the barn, damage to the footpath, damage to the parking lot, and as you can see here, a fall in the level of the lake. Now, the owner obviously was immediately alerted to the fact that the seismic testing had been going on, and contacted Rathlin Energy, and he was paid a visit by none less than the chairman of Rathlin Energy, David Montagu-Smith, along with his PR consultant by the name of Simon Taylor. And whilst they were there with the owner of the lake, they admitted full liability, telling him that they were extremely sorry at the damage that had been caused, and suggested that he should immediately get quotes for reparation, and Rathlin Energy would take care of it. Well, they all even suggested digging him a new lake in a field adjacent to the existing lake, and then using the landfill from the new lake to put into the old one. The problem with that, of course, is that he was actually building a restaurant overlooking the existing lake, so the restaurant would have been in completely the wrong place. Well, there was some £40,000 worth of fish in the lake, and due to fisheries regulations, the fish could not be moved. So Rathlin arranged for Yorkshire Water to put a standpipe outside the property and pump water into the lake. But this, of course, could only be a temporary measure, because the water from Yorkshire Water is fluoridated, and the fish don't like the fluoridation too much. Although the fluoride in the water does evaporate after just a few days. But nonetheless, it's in the few days that it's actually in the lake, has a presence in the lake, it could do the fish significant harm. Well, a couple of weeks later, the fishery owner was shocked to find Yorkshire Water removing the standpipe, and actually nearly got himself arrested trying to prevent them from removing the standpipe. But he was advised to contact Rathlin, who told him that they actually weren't that sure that they were responsible for the damage, and basically see you in court. Well, subsequently, Simon Taylor paid a visit to the owner of the fishing lake, the PR consultant working with Rathlin, and effectively intimated that he was prepared to commit perjury, because he claimed that he had a completely different recollection of the conversation that had occurred when he had visited the location with his boss a few weeks earlier. So we know exactly the type of individuals that we're dealing with here, but just to sort of really put the icing on the cake, and of course we have mentioned this a number of times before, David Montagu-Smith is also the chairman of the West Northamptonshire group for the Council for the Protection of Rural England, the CPRE. And this is a letter on the CPRE website, a letter of thanks to Chris Heaton Harris, the MP for the area. And the letter reads, "Dear Mr. Heaton Harris, as you know, the Northamptonshire branch of the Campaign for the Protection of Rural England has been very active and vocal in calling for a review of government policy on the onshore wind power industry, especially in the face of the very substantial number of wind farm development applications the country is now facing. We are very gratified that you and so many other members of Parliament have written to the Prime Minister on the subject, and we very much hope that despite early responses, the government will be receptive to your initiative, which we fully support. Quite apart from all the issues of environmental impact, efficiency and real costs associated with onshore wind power, it simply cannot be right for the industry to demand subsidy at consumer expense to encourage new wind farm developments, if, as we know, such very high levels of profitability are generated when they are in operation. We believe that it is entirely appropriate that the new Secretary of State be required to reconsider the levels of subsidy which is appropriate to the onshore wind industry at this stage of its development, given the known level of its profitability. And it is signed, best regards, David Montagu-Smith, Chairman, CPRE, West Northamptonshire District. Now, this is absolutely outrageous, of course. I mean, this is corruption. You know, David Montagu-Smith failing to declare his interests in promoting the unconventional gas industry, whilst using his position as chairman of CPRE West Northamptonshire to lobby the government to remove subsidies on renewables. Completely and utterly outrageous. Well, on August the 12th of this year, Rathlin announced that they would not be returning to Crawberry Hill on the basis of economics. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So basically, all the money that Rathlin Energy spent on trying to get access to Crawberry Hill was a complete waste of money because, as we now know, they have no intention of returning there. And in fact, they will be returning the site to its former agricultural glory by April next year, as per the conditions on their planning permission. Well, meanwhile, of course, they're still looking to drill a further well at West Newton B, the new well site at West Newton B, and rumour has it that they're also looking to drill another well at the previous well site, the well site where they had all of the environmental breaches, including cold venting of the gases, which was certainly against their permit. But nonetheless, they're in the early stages of that at the moment. But then, more recent developments, Rathlin also had a licence in the north of the province of Northern Ireland, up here near Rathlin Island. One assumes that's where the company takes its name from. Well, this was posted on the Rathlin Energy website on the 21st of October, so just a week or so ago. It says, termination of licence. It is with much regret that I have, as chairman of Rathlin Energy Limited, written to the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Investment, giving notice to terminate our petroleum licence related to the Rathlin Basin. The licence, granted in 2011 for 5 years, will terminate on the 14th of January 2016. The company has been involved in Northern Ireland for almost 12 years, believing there to be potential for the discovery of oil and or natural gas in the Rathlin Basin. However, we have reached a point where there no longer remains sufficient time under the initial phase of our petroleum licence to complete the planned programme of work. Against the background of severely depressed world oil prices, we have had to make important strategic decisions, and in view of all the uncertainties we face in Northern Ireland, especially in terms of the unforeseeable delays to our future operations, we have concluded that we cannot justify further work on our licence at this time. So this is really good news for Northern Ireland, because down here in County Fermanagh, the Northern Ireland Assembly effectively rescinded Tamron's licence to operate, clearly due to the fact that they hadn't fulfilled their communication requirements with the local community, and there were some 140 agricultural vehicles blocking the entrance to the well site. And now, of course, the Northern Irish Assembly have introduced a whole bunch of new planning regulations which make it pretty clear that they have no intention of awarding any licences for unconventional gas exploitation anytime soon. So, that's Rathlin Energy. That's the duplicity of David Montagu-Smith. Meanwhile, of course, the bailiffs are trying to recover some £37,000 or so, which is my share, reportedly, of the costs awarded by the court. Yet, despite my requests, Rathlin Energy have failed to produce any breakdown of those costs. But I'm imagining that they're getting rather short of cash right now. And I think the parent company, Connaught probably aren't feeling too well disposed to pumping in more money into an operation that's got very, very little chance of actually delivering any revenues anytime soon. So I have nothing, guys. Told you that before. I live on fumes. But Rathlin Energy, if you'd like to make a contribution to the fracking awareness campaign, then you're more than welcome to do so. And anybody else, of course, if you'd like to continue to support the work that I do in the fracking awareness arena, then please go to the website, frackingnightmare.com, and you'll find the donation button at the side there. And for the benefit of Rathlin Energy, I can assure you that there's normally no more than a few pounds in there. But if you want to go for blood, yeah, good luck. Meanwhile, I guess your bailiff's probably gone home by now, but no doubt you'll continue trying to track me down, and we'll see how that goes, won't we? Anyway, on that note, we'll take a break, and I'll see you in part 2.
The Alternative View Conference. The AV6 DVD collection. Enjoy 13 fantastic presentations on 12 discs from some of the best researchers in their fields.
What a weekend, hey? What a weekend, what a range of speakers, what a hard bunch of acts to follow, really. I've heard some of the most important information here today, really, because honestly, I've spoken at a lot of gigs, and I'd say this is the best gig that I've spoken at.
These unique presentations are essential viewing for all those who have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and who are now ready to participate in bringing about the changes that we all know we need to see. AV6. 12 discs in 2 volumes. Order now from ukcolumn.org. AV Events, taking positive activism to the next level.
Well, welcome back to part 2 of Fracking Nightmare. Now, it's been a very interesting week because, in fact, was it a little over a week ago, there was an announcement by UCOG. This is the UK Office for Onshore Oil and Gas, or something like that. And this is the announcement that they posted on their website. Leading science communication expert becomes chair of UCOG. So posted on the 20th of October. UCOG, the representative body for UK onshore oil and gas, has today appointed Professor Avril MacDonald, OBE, one of the UK's leading experts in communicating science to the public, as its chairperson. Professor MacDonald is Emeritus, retired, Professor of Science Engagement at the University of Reading, a board member of WISE, Women in Science and Engineering, Consultant Director of Highbury College, Portsmouth, and advises the 9 physics departments in Southeast Physics Network on diversity. In addition, she was chair of the Expert Group for Women in Science until 2015. Professor MacDonald has been at the forefront of promoting engineering and science education and careers for women. She is well known for pioneering science outreach through a wide range of projects designed to show people the fascination and career opportunities of science, including the well-known Science with Coffee and Hobnobs, a project particularly aimed at communicating science to mums. Well, if you think that was patronising, just wait a bit longer. She was subsequently invited to write the definitive guide to science outreach in universities by the Higher Education Academy. So this is Professor Avril MacDonald. And her first outing in public was to hold a press conference where basically she said, women don't understand fracking. And it made front page of the Times and was reported in most of the other broadsheets. But here's the article. Women don't understand fracking. Vast numbers of women are opposed to fracking because they don't understand and follow their gut instinct rather than the facts, according to a leading female scientist. Avril McDonald, the new champion of the shale gas industry, leading a push to persuade women that the process is safe and will benefit Britain's economy as well as help to meet climate change targets. Research has shown that men are nearly twice as likely to support fracking. Well, the Mail Online made the observation, women are too emotional to understand fracking and don't understand the facts, says women scientist being paid by the fracking lobby. Professor Avril McDonald said women go with their gut, not the science. Men are more likely to consider the facts and try to understand. She added, not only do women show more of a concern about fracking, they also know they don't know and they don't understand. Now, just how patronizing can you get? This was absolutely unbelievable. Well, if you actually want to see Professor Avril McDonald spell this out, then just search for her interview on Channel 4. This was an absolute car crash interview. In fact, it was one of the best recruiting videos for the anti-fracking community that I've actually seen in a long time. And I can absolutely guarantee that Professor Avril McDonald achieved more in terms of promoting awareness of the anti-fracking community in the space of about 48 hours than we could have achieved by any amount of campaigning. It's an absolute must-see interview. I mean, to choose somebody who is allegedly at the top of their game in terms of science communication, and for her to literally do this at the first outing is absolutely unbelievable. Well, then Jeremy Vine picks it up on Radio 2. He doesn't get Professor Avril McDonald on, but he gets Professor Peter Stiles. And here's a brief report from that interview. And this is still on the Radio 2 website, I believe, right now. So the interview actually starts at around 6 minutes. Professor Peter Stiles is only marginally less patronising than Professor Avril McDonald, but yet fourth credit to Fiona Young from Whitchurch, Shropshire, and to Peter Jones from Aberdeen, former oilfield worker who were definitely not saying what the BBC wanted to hear. I have to say that Fiona Young was truly outstanding. And not least a little put out by the fact that a member of her own sex had been so patronising and so demeaning. It is true that probably something about 70% of the activists within the anti-fracking community are indeed women. And the reason is that the women have done their research. And they have actually looked at the problems associated within this industry and come to the realization that this is not something that you want to be condemning future generations to be dealing with the legacy. So thank you very much, Professor Avril McDonald. I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you. And based on your performance to date, then I can only thank you for your outstanding contribution. There was a couple of fantastic letters in the Times today, not least from my good friends Christopher and Dagmar Pickles in Gilling, East Yorkshire, one of the areas that is currently under review in the 14th round, and from Helen Savage in Balcombe. And I have to say that, there are some of the women, many of the women that are part of the anti-fracking community, I can absolutely guarantee that Professor Avril McDonald will never go head-to-head with them because she would literally be roasted. Now, there is another observation that I want to make here, and that is that if a male academic had made a similar observation, his career would now be in tatters. And he'd be picking up the pieces and accused of making an outrageously sexist comment. Yet Professor Avril McDonald's comments are, in my opinion, misogynistic. What is it about her? Doesn't she communicate with women? Her biscuits or coffee and hobnobs perhaps is an illustration of her attitude to members of her sex. She obviously only associates in the circles of academia. But of course, the Times wouldn't be complete, would it, without bringing in the token pro-fracker? And it actually had to call upon Ray Cope, a former director of the Gas Consumers Council. So no vested interest there, eh? Well, I'm sure this has got some legs, and I would once again reiterate my observation and recommendation. Do please go watch Avril McDonald's Channel 4 interview, and do please listen to the Jeremy Vine piece where he initially speaks with a lady called Edna. And if Edna isn't out of an acting school, then I can only assume that she is kept on the Radio 2 books to be rolled out for occasions just such as this. Truly remarkable. Anyway, at that point, we'll take a break, and I'll see you back after this promo for Voices from the Gas Fields.
Shale gas is part of the future, and we will make it happen.
I'm charged with, without lawful authority or excuse, obstructing the highway. Well, I believe I have lawful excuse.
We're going to take very great care that there is no damage to the water supply.
Gas at Barton Moss contaminated the well site. Then Rathlin Energy were responsible for considerable property damage as a result of their seismic testing.
There is a fishing lake which started to go down immediately following the detonation of these charges.
I think there's a huge amount of myths that are being put round in order to frighten people.
The first person that signed a well was the person that doomed us to this. An unconventional gas well isn't a pipe out of the ground. With it comes all of the drilling and the destruction. That's a hectare. Plus tracks, compressor stations, water holding ponds.
So we're right in the middle of the Australian bush here. Well, it was once bush.
We take a strip literally 520 kilometres for this one company. We sit on the Great Artesian Basin, one of the greatest water resources in the world, and they are allowed to deplete it and turn it to trash.
There used to be a beautiful green lawn with roses in it. 3 nights of rain, it was dead. Each time it rains, it just comes up black.
You're genuinely so scared of what is happening. It's untrustworthy and it's running out.
This is called a high point vent. That'll have everything in it.
The benzene, the toluene, the ethyl benzenes.
Everything.
When your nose is burning, your eyes are burning, and you got that terrible oily sort of taste, I said, you know, the flares are not, they're just venting. Then other times, it's like little fibres in your throat, you know, the flare is on.
The majority of people that have visited us, they say, how can you live there? You know.
And welcome back to part 3 of Fracking Nightmare. Now, last week we took a look at events unfolding in North Yorkshire. And I was certainly anticipating that there was a strong prospect that North Yorkshire County Council would be considering Third Energy's planning application to frack the well at Kirby Misperton before the end of the year. That is looking increasingly unlikely. It seems that the Planning Department of North Yorkshire County Council have a number of questions, and they have sent a bunch of questions off to Third Energy for them to address before they can consider the application at full committee. Well, this is the graphic that I put at the front of last week's episode of A Fracking Nightmare, and of course making a light-hearted reference to the fact that Kevin Hollingbrake, the local MP, following his trip to Pennsylvania, had given an interview to Ruth Hayhurst at Drill or Drop, where he stated categorically that, in his opinion, there should be a 1-mile exclusion zone around all fracked wells. Well, this certainly cannot have pleased John Dewar, the chairman of Third Energy, because, as you will see from the graphic, the KM8 well that Third Energy want to run a 5-stage frack on is actually less than 1 mile. In fact, it's exactly 1 kilometre from the entrance of Flamingo Land, Yorkshire's biggest tourist attraction. And the entire village of Kirby Misperton is well within that 1 mile radius. So I'm sure that John Dewar had a word in Kevin Hollingbrake's shell-like, because then on October the 7th, in an interview with the Yorkshire Post, Kevin Hollingbrake stated that he won't try to block fracking plans in North Yorkshire. So, in my opinion, Kevin Hollingbrake has effectively made himself pretty much an irrelevant. So, and let's not waste too much more time on him. But let's focus on the process and the real stakeholders. Now, I want to draw your attention, particularly people who live in Yorkshire or are a part of the Yorkshire Water catchment area. This is from Yorkshire Water's own website, and the section on fracking states, "Our primary concern is making sure that our customers always enjoy the safest drinking water. With that in mind, shale gas extraction is an issue that we consider to be of strategic importance to our water and wastewater services. We are now a statutory consultee on planning applications for onshore hydraulic fracturing, shale gas extraction, and we will carefully consider and comment on all shale gas planning applications. We don't, however, have control over whether fracking takes place in the region. Our primary concern is making sure that where fracking does occur, it is done safely and has no impact on water supplies. As companies apply for permission to produce shale gas by hydraulic fracturing, we will review our policy and, if necessary, change it to reflect the hazards and risks to our customers and the environment." It's an interesting choice of words there. Our current assessment is that the risks from shale gas production are acceptable, provided they are properly identified, leading to appropriate risk mitigation. Basically, the bottom line is they really have no clue because, unfortunately, geology doesn't respond to legislation. But I want to also draw your attention to an article that appeared in The Independent on Sunday on the 10th of August of 2014. Because although this article wasn't referring to hydraulic fracturing, it was referring to Third Energy's intent at that time to drill a re-injection well on Eberston Moor. And this is an extract from that article. According to documents seen by The Independent on Sunday, the Environment Agency has been warned that public water supplies could be affected. Yorkshire Water is concerned about the re-injection well, which will travel through the rock from which they draw water, called the Corallian Limestone Aquifer. In submissions to the Environment Agency, the water company said the water re-injection may directly affect their asset. Now, the reason I flagged that up is because I actually sat in on both of the last two meetings of the Planning Committee of the North York Moors And it was acknowledged, with some surprise, in fact, by the members of the committee, that Yorkshire Water had not made any submission or any comment at all regarding Third Energy's application to drill the reinjection well on Ebbston Moor. So, this smacks of abdication. What are Yorkshire Water thinking here? A year ago, they made the observation that they were concerned because the reinjection well would be going through the Corallian aquifer. This is the aquifer that certainly provides Scarborough with its water. And yet, when it comes to the crunch, they offer no comment. So what are they trying to do? Work on the basis that if there is a problem, they can say, well, it's nothing to do with us because we didn't comment. Well, water companies elsewhere certainly acknowledge that there are some problems. And this is also from 2 years ago. This is from August of 2013. And this is an extract from an article that appeared in the Brighton Argus. And the extract here, it says, the risk that drinking water in Sussex could be contaminated by fracking chemicals was known by the government more than a year ago. Previously, secret documents reveal. Ministers were privately briefed by the Environment Agency that fracking near aquifers, underground rocks which contain water, should not be permitted. But the Environment Agency's head of climate change later changed the wording on a public statement related to the issue so as not to create too stark a message about shale gas drilling. The revelations, which could have major implications for the future of fracking in Sussex, were made the day after Prime Minister David Cameron said residents must accept the controversial practice in their communities and dismiss safety concerns. Mr. Cameron wrote, there is no reason why fracking should cause contamination of water supplies or other environmental damage if properly regulated. Well, that same diatribe has been heard in just about every country, every state, every community where this industry has got itself a foothold. And the bottom line is that the UK isn't going to be any different. And as those who have done their research, the women, Professor Avril MacDonald, who have done their research, know very well that the proliferation of unconventional gas wells will inevitably lead to contamination. So we all know that this industry has no place anywhere on the planet, but certainly not in this densely populated island of ours, where we are totally reliant on the weather cycle and of the underground aquifers for our water supply. Now, elsewhere in the world, this industry is effectively going into recession, mothballs, hibernation, whatever you want to call it. But not in the UK. In the UK, for some reason, the British government is wanting to push full steam ahead. But let's take a look at why that might be. First of all, let's take an update on the current pricing. Current price of a barrel of oil, and as I've discussed before, the reason we talk about oil as opposed to gas, although we'll touch on the gas in a second, is that it is the price of oil which effectively is the prime driver for the other hydrocarbon commodities. And as we see here, this is the phenomenal drop, only half of the phenomenal drop actually, that the price of oil has taken over the last 15 months or so, coming down to under $55 a barrel in the early part of the year, and then finally dropping below $50 in July of this year, falling down to 38 and a few cents in August. Bit of a recovery, but it's now stabilizing, I use the term loosely, somewhere around about $45 a barrel. Now, and we'll look at this in a second, but even in the Buchan Shale, which is a mature, unconventional oil field here, the price of a barrel, the marginal cost of extracting a barrel is $42. $42. So at current prices, they're making barely $2 a barrel. This is not good business by any stretch of the imagination. So that's over the year. If we look at the last 3 months, we can see, the dead cat bounce here, down to 38, back up over 50, and now as it settles down, and it's settling down to around about 45. And pretty much all of the industry and commodity commentators assess that it's going to stick around the 45 buck mark for a long time to come, and certainly they're not envisaging getting above 60 bucks a barrel anytime in the next decade, as the OPEC countries try to maximize their market share in the twilight years of a hydrocarbon-driven economy. Well, let's just take a look at gas, because gas in the US, and look at this collapse of the gas price, literally in the last few weeks, from $2.50 per million BTU down to just over $2. So this is a collapse of some 20% in the gas price. But let's have a look at what's going on in the US. I just want to show you what's occurring in terms of rig count, because this will start to show just how ridiculous it is that this industry is being pushed ahead in the UK, when elsewhere in the world, basically, it's dying on its feet. So here are the major shale plays, unconventional geology around the US. So obviously we can look at a lot of statistics, but I'm just going to focus on rig count. So let's work around in a clockwise direction here. Let's start with the Bakken shale play up here in North Dakota and cross into eastern Montana. And the rig count is the black line here. And look at this. Look at this fall off, literally in the last few months as the price has tanked. So the number of rigs has come down. Let's move around. We're going to the Marcellus shale play here. This is over in Pennsylvania. It's the one that Kevin Hollinrake went and visited, the one where he came back and made his observation that he thought there should be a 1 mile exclusion zone around each fracked well. Look at the drop off of the rigs here. Okay, let's go to the Haynesville region. This is over in West Texas and Louisiana, northeastern Louisiana here. Look at the drop-off in the rigs here. Okay, let's go to Eagle Ford. This is down this area that runs right across the southeastern, right through the southeast and the southwestern part of Texas. Look at the fall off in the rigs here. Okay, this is the Permian shale play over in West Texas and over into New Mexico here. Look at the fall off in the rigs here. And here in Niobrara, over in Nebraska, look at this. We had a massive drop off back in 2009, but that was primarily due to a phenomenal return on the gas being produced. But then as the gas produced dropped, so the rig count came back up, and look at it now dropping right off again. So you get the picture. You get the picture here. Everywhere else in the world, and primarily the US in particular, this industry is well past its sell-by date. And it's not looking like this will come on stream again anytime soon, particularly as the OPEC countries, particularly Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, Oman, all of these countries want to maximize the opportunity to secure market share over the next probably 10 to 15 years as the hydrocarbons industry winds itself down. And I know that a lot of people who have an existential attachment to hydrocarbons will dismiss this as rampant conspiracy. Where really, I was trying to help you guys in iGas a year ago, when I was trying to tell you to get out while you had the opportunity. Look at the iGas stock price. 21 months ago, 160. Even 15 months ago, just over 140. And then down it came following the price of oil. So the iGas stock price today closed today at 21.5 pence, a long way down from £1.60. Now iGas does have some revenues, although those revenues are looking pretty sick right now because they are producing 300,000 barrels of oil a year. Of course, I have no idea what the marginal cost of their production is, but of course they're only getting, $44 a barrel compared to what they were getting a year or so ago. So, with all of this occurring, why is the British government pushing ahead, wanting to literally turn the north of England in particular, the whole of the Bowland Shale area, into a massive sacrifice zone? Well, let's come back to this. Let's come back to deep geological disposal. It's actually 14 months since I first broached this subject on Fracking Nightmare back in September of 2014. Now, there has been plenty of opportunity to dismiss these observations because I'm not the only one making these observations. There's been plenty of opportunity to dismiss them, but the British government elects not to do so. And this is the white paper that was published. You can download this document. So it's freely available as a PDF from the government's website. Simply put Implementing Geological Disposal PDF into your search engine and you will find it. In the document, I think this is page 16, is a map of the existing nuclear waste storage locations. And these are primarily, of course, nuclear power stations, military bases, or research centres. In the document, it spells out the 100-year agenda to turn the UK into a toxic nuclear waste dump. Don't even need to read the text, you can look at the pictures. Here's the wells, and here's the lateral repositories for the nuclear waste. For some time now, the government has been talking about implementing this plan, but it knows very well that it's not going to be popular. Who in their right mind is going to agree to toxic nuclear waste being deposited in their backyard? If you thought a fracked well was bad enough, then a fracked well followed up with a desert of toxic nuclear waste is literally just about going to cap it, isn't it? Well, the consultations were launched at the beginning of October. And so, unfortunately, we're now very much at the back end of those consultations. I'll come back to that slide in just a second because there are a few consultations remaining. Tomorrow night in Plymouth at the Copthorne Hotel between 6 o'clock and 8:30. Then on Wednesday at the Hilton Hotel in Belfast, and this is a technical workshop. On Monday the 2nd of November at the Novotel in Ipswich. And then the final consultation on Thursday the 5th of November at the Mercure, Manchester Piccadilly. Now, just to put in perspective how well these were publicised, I somehow didn't know about them. No, not that I keep up with everything, but I only literally came across these consultation dates at the back end of last week. So if you live anywhere near Plymouth, Belfast, Ipswich or Manchester, my counsel is to get along to these consultation events. Now, you can read more on the website here. This is www.nda.gov.uk/RWM. And you'll find all the documentation that the government body wants to put out for the interested parties to read. If you want to reserve a place, and I do believe that each of these consultation events you do have to book online. They are free, but the website is not easy to find. It's surveymonkey.com/r/ and then uppercase D6VBZTX. I'll leave that up on screen just for a while longer so that if you want to make a note. Now, unfortunately, you've literally only got the next week or so if you want to take advantage of these. But do go along. Ask the questions. Because one of the interesting things within this consultation is that the government makes the statement that they know that people will not willingly accept toxic nuclear waste being deposited in their area. And what they did earlier this year, one of the last votes taken in Parliament before the end of the last government, prior to the May elections, was to vote on removing all local authority participation in the decision-making process of where toxic nuclear waste is buried in this country. Now, a number of individuals around the country have challenged their MPs on this, and it's becoming increasingly obvious that these MPs were caught unawares. They didn't know what they'd voted on. And as Mary Black, the SNP member for Westminster, stated in a presentation that she gave in Thurso, I believe, in the north of Scotland earlier this week, she said that what absolutely disgusts her about Westminster is the fact that very, very few MPs will participate in the debate. It's a charade, a total charade. But when the division bell goes, they pile out of the restaurants, out of the bars, and just go through whichever division the whip tells them to. You know, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. If you're watching this program, you will already know that democracy in this country is a total charade. So the MPs were somewhat shocked to discover that some of their constituents had a little bit more awareness about this particular vote than they did. So they had to go back to the relevant departments to seek advice and guidance as to how to respond. And they're all coming back with the same response. They say, well, yes, normally, of course, we do represent our constituents, and we know that our constituents would not have wanted us to vote for this. But there are other occasions when we have to take a government stand, and we have to vote on what's in the best interests for the country. So there you have it. Prima facie evidence that your MPs will basically do whatever it is they're told to do. Of course, we might see... And by the way, of course, if there's any threat of the government losing a vote, then they simply threaten to change out the House of Lords or fill it with their own stooges. So, democracy? Dream on. This issue of toxic nuclear waste is crucial. The anti-fracking communities that are evolving all around the country, and we need to stimulate and nurture as many autonomous, independent community groups as possible. We need people to take a real interest in how they are being screwed over by this administration. Of course, they've been screwed over by previous administrations, but this one, like no other. Not only do they want to turn your area into a sacrifice zone by fracking it, once they've fracked it and drilled the deep wells, there's the very real prospect that they're going to use those wells to dispose of toxic nuclear waste. And even if they say, no, we're not, I wouldn't believe them. Look at the number of lies that David Cameron had told prior to the last election, particularly over tax credits. Well, I can pretty much guarantee that he's going to tell exactly the same lies over toxic nuclear waste disposal. Now is the time to take an interest in this. Whether it's fracking, whether it's the toxic nuclear waste, or whether it's the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, which is being set up to overrule all national legislation. Before the election, I made the observation that we perhaps had a maximum of 5 years to take this country back into a real democracy, a country that has compassion, a country that recognizes that not everybody has the same opportunities. If we don't do that, then we are looking at a situation where the underclass are looking at effectively being euthanized in one way, shape or form. Useless eaters, as Henry Kissinger referred to them. So, tough times, but at the same time, exciting times, because these issues and others are bringing people together around the country like nothing before. It's wonderful to see people motivated and taking an interest. Life as an MP is going to get extremely hot as feet are held to the fire. Well, I've got a number of private events coming up, and it's wonderful, and I really appreciate the invitation to speak to groups, influential groups around the country who are starting to realise that their political leaders are not looking after their best interests. For the next public event that I have, and no doubt the bailiffs will be along as well, and hopefully we'll catch that on live stream, of course. But this will be Tuesday, the 3rd of November, so that's Tuesday week. And in fact, there will not be an episode of either Humanity vs. Insanity or Fracking Nightmare next week, as I will be elsewhere in the country. But on Tuesday the 3rd at 7:30, I'll be at the Freedom Church, 35 Wormsley Road in Bury. And it's a bit of an unfortunate photograph that they chose for that, so we can pretty much be sure that no one's coming along for the eye candy. But it's going to be an interesting evening, and we'll be talking about, obviously, the unconventional gas agenda. We'll be talking about toxic nuclear waste disposal, and we'll be talking about TTIP. Exciting times. Thanks for joining me tonight. I will see you in 2 weeks. Take care.